I grew up with Homer. I mean, I was in Hamburg, Germany, where I grew up. I was at school where we learned actually ancient Greek and Latin. So I actually read Homer's work in the original ancient Greek language. So I was very close to it, very familiar. And I loved Achilles. I thought it was really good. And of course, you had this kind of, oh, wow, this sort of admiration for Homer as the greatest poet of all time, and the Iliad, maybe the greatest story ever written. So later on, get the chance to do a film about it. I think you have at least some mixed feelings about being a little bit intimidated by all that. On the other hand, it's not something remote and strange for me. I knew it very well. There was so much excitement when we were shooting this film about doing something what is for a filmmaker and for actors, I think, always the best. If you can have a great event, a great, spectacular, visually stunning, amazing film, that's always great. You know, when you go to the movies, you want to, wow, you want to see something what just takes your breath away. At the same time, though, you just tell an amazing story and really strong actors and bigger than life characters, heroes, cowards, everything. Homer and the Iliad, they have it all. If you streamline a story, and Homer's story is like a universe, so many more layers and characters and all, you cannot just deal with everything. You have to streamline it and also make some choices that a lot of people really were a little bit angry about. I mentioned it right away, so it's out of the way, that we killed Agamemnon is absolutely not Homer. I do it because I think an audience will not be happy. If we go with a version that's more known, that Agamemnon survives, and at the end he's being killed by his wife in the bathtub or so, I think it's not very satisfying. The main thing about this version is that we don't have here the fact that we added all kind of storylines that were not there. That's not so much, it's more subtle. I will give you an example. In the very beginning, we see now, and that's very different than the film in the theaters, is we start the scene with an empty valley and we see this poor dog looking for his master. I always liked it. It wasn't in the script like that, but we never used it before. I liked it that because it said so much about the tragedy of the whole situation. Poor dog looking for his master. He sniffs around, there's no master. He finds some bloody remnants of obviously a fierce battle. And then finally he sees the crows up there and finds the dead master, and he licks him and he's whining a little bit. And then he looks up and hears already the dreaded stomping foot again of, you know, that means the next battle is coming. I like it, no words, nothing, but it says sort of everything about the insanity of this all and the tragic tone. Helen, for me, I really wanted to have somebody who is unknown. She's living there in Sparta, and all rumors about she's so beautiful and so, but of course nobody has seen her because there was no television at that time, no newspapers. I want to have the same thing, like all these rumors about Helen and so, who is Helen when they go to see the movie, to present somebody they have not seen, has no baggage of all the other roles that she had played. So we did a worldwide search. I think we looked at 3,000 different actors around the globe, and finally popped up this one test with Diane Kruger, what she did herself. And I thought, wait a moment, there's something here. Let me see. She's good. I invited her and made a second test with her in England. And that finally made it for me. Then I invited her to come to Hollywood and did another test with her, with costume already, with proper makeup, with lights and a real film camera, and showed that to the studio. And they were kind of still, I don't know, nobody knows her, and say, that's the good news. Nobody knows her.
Before you came to Sparta, I was a ghost. I walked and I ate and I swam in the sea, but I was a ghost.
An interesting thing about Agamemnon, so he's not just sort of just a bad guy. He sees himself as a very modern type who is able to unite that first big empire. It sounds good what he says, but it's also a lot of like personal gain and power, greed involved in that. But on the other hand, he says Achilles is just a guy from the past. I mean, he only thinks about his own glory and doesn't see more or less the big picture of politics, what you should do. I think Achilles sees it right through. At the end of the day, it's not so much a modern strategy to save the world. I think he sees it's indeed for Agamemnon more like pure power greed and he wants to be the king of all kings and has the biggest power of them all. It all sounds very often when our politicians speak, oh, it's so great and so wonderful, and what the real motivation is, very often it's very clear. And I think in this case with Agamemnon, it's pretty clear, and Achilles sees it. And in that sort of conspiracy scene there between Agamemnon and Nestor, when they talk about they want to go and gather all the ships and attack Troy, Agamemnon indicates that would be a great opportunity for him to finally get Troy. He doesn't care so much about the problem that his brother has with his wife, but it's for him, it's a great opportunity to finally get that Troy that is so important for him, the last sort of stone in the whole mosaic of his empire. But Nestor, who knows very well what's going on and is a very smart man, he says, you will not ever do it because that's Hector and Troy unless you have Achilles. And that's something what Agamemnon really hates, the idea. But he's kind of forced into it by the necessity, and he knows, and Nestor saying you have to do it because he's a born killer. If you want to win this battle against Troy, then you need Achilles. We know from the very beginning of the movie how antagonistic these two men are. We know we are in for something now when he reluctantly agrees to send somebody like Odysseus to Achilles to hire him for this job. This is the man that Achilles truly cannot stand. I mean, he doesn't like his pompous behavior, his way of using people just to get more power and finally conquer all of Greece. All that is completely against the philosophy, the grain, and the humanity of Achilles. And vice versa, Agamemnon cannot stand him because he is not used to find anybody out there who criticizes him as much as Achilles and is so arrogant and cocky with him. We feel the jealousy and the anger of Agamemnon towards Achilles much stronger, and vice versa as well. I'm very proud of this cut, that especially this relationship is really now there and hitting hard and very interesting. Odysseus, the character for Sean Bean, wonderful actor. We could not introduce him properly in the film because it was another scene of 2 minutes or so, and we didn't have the time. So now the scene is there when he's sitting there on the hillside with his dog. It's a character that do now understand why Achilles, this fierce, distant fighter, likes him and has a relationship to him, because he comes across in that new scene as what he actually is, a fun guy, a human being, a lot of humor, and not all about power. And like Agamemnon, he's a good guy. And now the relationship between him and Achilles works so much better because of that introduction scene. Location selecting and all that was pretty much of a nightmare, very difficult, because we needed Mediterranean areas. I was asked often if I go to Greece maybe or to Turkey. That time it was considered dangerous to go there because of the very political tension in that whole area, and also the infrastructure for making big movies is not really there. We wanted to go to Malta, what we did. Malta is very close to the African coast, very close to Sicily. And then we thought Morocco was a good place to go for the look of the beaches and the sand. Then the whole political situation with the Iraq war, we had to cancel that. We couldn't shoot there. The whole company had to move then to Mexico instead, around Cabo San Lucas. And that was easier said than done, because there are not so many places who are really a Mediterranean look and feel to it, where you can hire also extras who, from their skin tone and so, would also look Mediterranean, and climate is okay. In that case, also closer to Los Angeles, what helps with, as you can imagine, with the logistics and everything. So Mexico was good. I mean, the problem with Mexico was we had not this enormous, gigantic battlefields for 100,000 people doing a battle, because it doesn't exist in Mexico. So in our desperation, we had then to say, but when we have to create it, we have to cut all these bushes and trees in an enormous section. And we got the permission for that, to do that, if we, after we've done, plant it all back in. In both places, it was extremely hot. If you would have known how, right before the scene starts, everybody, the actors, look like, with towels all over them, you know, with cold water, and their feet in ice buckets with water, because it was unbelievable hot. If you look at one scene when Peter O'Toole greets Helen for the first time on the steps of his palace, that day, we read a newspaper from England, Malta was the hottest spot in the world. I thought Peter O'Toole would fall down any second. And if you look at that, he looks fine. He looks okay. But wait when the camera stops, right back into the bucket and back into the ice and everything. And it was really hard. And then on top of it, at the end in Mexico, the entire wall of Troy in a hurricane was ripped apart and gone. And we had to stop production. We had to go back, regroup like 3 or 4 months later. We had to rebuild the whole wall because it was not CG or so, it was a real wall. It was very expensive, of course, again, to rebuild that and then come back, bring the actors back. They had to cut her hair again. The city of Troy, the inside, the city, was built in Malta again. So we had that horse on the beach, and we shot Malta first. So the scene when they bring the big horse into Troy, that was done in Malta, and then we have to disassemble the whole huge horse and ship it with big planes to Mexico. Troy is basically about to be attacked by an incredible force of the Greeks to show the fear in the city, the trepidation, the preparation of we need to produce weapons fast. And you feel the nervousness, the tension in the city. All that we really didn't do in the film version. And now we can do it, and it works so beautifully, I think. You feel actually the sweat in everybody's hands. And that's, from a filmmaking point of view, very, very good, because you build up tension. I mean, you build up the big moment, and you feel more for these people. First, it was more, maybe a bit technical. Here's the city, here comes the ship, and now they clash. Here now we feel the hours and hours and the agony before they come and their fear. And that makes it more human. And you relate right away as a human being, as an audience, you relate to that fear. We all know, have heard and felt about something is coming and we are afraid. And that's fine that the film has now the room to show all that. When we watch movies, we know that it's all about, are we in the story? Are we with the actors? Are we understand what they are feeling, what they're doing, why they are doing? Very often, I find myself sitting, watching films, and I watch it from the outside, but I'm not really, really drawn in. I think this version of Troy gives you the chance to truly understand the story and truly understand the characters, why they're doing what they're doing. And then, of course, your emotions are much stronger. And we know how films work. If you understand these people, you understand more about yourself. And that's what filmmaking and storytelling is all about. And if you go out at the end and one eye cries and the other one smiles because you went through an emotional turmoil, then you had a good time. The character of Ajax, the big guy, is now a real person in the film. It was very cut short in the older version. And now he's there. Well, they talk about it in the beginning. He shows up much more often. He's really introduced as a very violent killer. The whole fight between him and Hector becomes a whole different meaning now, because we say, oh God, don't fight that guy. He's a monster. And the tension because of that, the emotional impact, because we like Hector so much, is different, is really different. All of a sudden, again, that scene becomes more weight, more emotional impact, because the elements leading to this kind of big confrontation and the emotional outcome of that is better set up. You spend more time to get the audience into who are these people, especially Ajax now, so that we have all reason to be very afraid when they fight.
The men found her hiding in the temple. They thought she'd amuse you.
And then also I did some interesting stuff with Rose Byrne from Australia, who I really liked a lot. I did the test with Brad just to see if the chemistry would work out, and it did just beautiful.
What's your name? You're safer in here with me than you are out there.
You killed Apollo's priests.
Later on, I asked Brad, what do you think? And he said, I think there's no choice. I love her. Let's do it. No? I said, absolutely, let's do it.
Why did you choose this life?
This life?
This. To be a warrior.
I didn't choose. This what I am.
But you must enjoy it.
The love scene between Achilles and Briseis, Brad Pitt and Rose Byrne, is much longer now, and it is so badly needed, I think, in this tough story, that a little bit more sensuality, a little bit the longing of these people to each other, a little bit what has nothing to do with war and with power and all that, just with the beauty of the other person and holding tight to her and make love. I think it's so important. Also, it's important, it gives Achilles a better character move, because that is the reason why he next day decides not to fight anymore. He finally found something else in his life. And it's wonderful, it's love. It turns him around and he doesn't want to be a fighter anymore.
You gave me peace. In a lifetime of war.
You got the idea and the feeling in the feature film it was, how it was, but now you really feel it much stronger. That's what I mean with the smaller things you show in this cut, and that gets you closer to the people. These things are beautiful if you can actually really put them back in the film. I think that makes a lot of difference. Everything I think about Homer, the stories, the characters, everything is absolute modern. I mean, there's nothing old-fashioned. All the problems we see here, the sort of down-to-earth, friendly, peaceful, a good man Hector, and more the darker, more aggressive, more selfish, more out for glory Achilles. I think we all can relate to both of these. Sometimes we even have actually really feel both of these elements inside ourselves. I think Homer, and that's his genius, thousands of years ago was already said about mankind, about their problems, about their hopes, about their fears, their disappointments, about life, everything. And that makes it completely contemporary and fresh. I think not only mine, I think more or less everybody's favorite scene. And it's a very, very, very famous scene. It's almost exactly in Homer's Iliad like that. It's a wonderful scene. I mean, when Peter O'Toole comes in and sort of kisses the hand of the man who killed his son, it's just always, I get the goosebumps when I see that. And Peter O'Toole, who I met in London to talk about the part, and I hoped he would do it, and he said, yes, I do it because of one scene, it's that scene. Because that scene is great. And please, Wolfgang, don't change a thing. Don't have it rewritten, nothing. I love it the way it is in the script. It's a turning point in the film, especially for Achilles, because he is reminded of his father who died, who was lucky enough, he says, Priam in the scene, to not witness that his own son dies. The courage of this old man to come to him, to this fierce fighter Achilles, to ask for the body, for the burial, is something what totally floors Achilles. He is so impressed by him. It's a major character point and also sets Achilles up for the whole rest of the movie, the way he goes into the palace to not be part of the whole sacking of Troy. He has only that one idea to get Briseis out and saves her life. This experience, what he had with this great man, Priam, and he says, you are much better king at the end than our leader. So it's crossing over to the enemy and realizing what beauty is there on the other side with the enemy, and what a great man. It's a wonderful scene. That and the fight between Achilles and Hector, the physical fight in front of the gates of Troy. These are the two scenes I can see over and over again. Love it. Nigel Phelps, the designer, had the idea to really give the audience the feeling that huge horse that holds so many Greek warriors inside, actually they had a chance to build that. It's not so legendary, but realistic, because they had so many burned out ships on the shore from all these battles that they actually took all these pieces, put them together, and built a horse out of this burned out and broken wood. It's kind of interesting with a wooden horse also, with Nigel Phelps, the designer, how he got the idea in the first place to do this horse. I think he found a photograph of a sunken Venetian ship, old ship, what they excavated. And then he found also a picture of a gorilla, I think, where this whole gorilla was made out of tires. and put together. And it looked weird, it looked interesting. And these two elements together, he said, maybe there's a way to create a wooden horse out of it. And he had a little competition with his art directors to work with these ideas, with this inspiration, and come up with all kind of ways of create that wooden horse. When the horse is done, I think it's a most beautiful thing of a design. And then it's also interesting, the Iliad ends with Hector's death. Everything what's after that in the film is taken more or less from Virgil. And so the horse is not in the Iliad, the wooden horse. But of course, you don't want to end with Hector's death. You want to then really see how they finally sacked Troy, the Greeks, with that great trick of the wooden horse and then starting to invade the city and conquer the city. All that is not Homer. So the horse we brought to Berlin for the world premiere of the film. We had to dismantle it, put it back together there, very, very big deal again. And people were always, for days, walking around there looking at this horse. It was a great marketing tool. And I think we did the same thing in Tokyo, a big splash there too. And then the end of the story is actually quite beautiful. It ended up in Troy, in the real Troy in Turkey, sitting there, standing there, hopefully forever.